Do you want to learn effective ways to build relationships, generate sales, and grow your business from successful entrepreneurs, startups, and CEOs without listening to a long interview? If so, you've come to the right place. Gresham Harkless values your time and is ready to share with you precisely the information you're in search of. This is the IAM416 podcast.
Hello. This is Gresh from the IAM416 podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Danica Combo of the Everywhere Agency. Danica, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Awesome to be here, Gresh. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. And what I wanted to do was just read a little bit more about Danica so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing. And Danica is the CEO and founder of Everywhere Agency, perhaps the leading influencer marketing agency in the country. Her agency works with some of America's most beloved brands, matching them with influencers to tell their stories online. Before launching Everywhere Agency, Danica was well-known media executive and television producer. She worked on such acclaimed shows as Sesame Street, Saturday Night Live. Danica is one of the founders of the Influencer Marketing Association, a nonprofit devoted to keeping the human in influencer marketing. Danica, are you ready to speak to the IAM416 community?
I sure am. I love talking to other CEOs.
Awesome. So let's do it. So to kick everything off, I wanted to hear a little bit more about your CEO story. I want to let you get started with your business.
Okay, so I'm just really honest. My CEO story is one which kind of started with not the most ideal circumstances, which is getting laid off in the height of the financial crisis. So it's 2008, 2009, I get laid off. I'm working for a big PR firm. Who's going to hire me? So I would honestly say that starting an agency for me, I don't want to call it a desperation move, but it was really the only way I could see to support my family. So this was also around the time that Obama got elected. And when I was at the big PR firm, one of the things that I heard everybody say is, I want that thing. I want that social media thing. I want that thing that got Obama elected. And I looked around at all these big global PR firms and I knew they were ill-equipped. So when I originally launched, I launched as a social media agency only because the phrase influencer marketing didn't exist. But from the beginning, our sweet spot really was working with bloggers and finding bloggers to tell the stories of brands. So that's kind of my founder story. I could pretend like I had some brilliant vision, but the truth was, they always say necessity is the motherhood of invention, and it was necessity. No regrets, best thing that ever happened to me, but that's my story.
Yeah, necessity was the case for me as well, as I too have been laid off, and I got laid off, and that's why I started a couple of things that I've done as well. So I know that can be a frustrating time, but it's great to hear that you not only built something, but you are at the forefront of what is now influencer marketing. So I wanted to drill down a little bit deeper.
And one other thing, if you don't mind my saying, is that I am an entrepreneur at heart. My parents were entrepreneurs, so I've always kind of bucked the system. Right. So for me, the freedom of running my own business was both exhilarating and terrifying. But the exhilarating outweighed the terrifying.
Exactly. You have to be able to keep that balance. And I know you touched on it a little bit, and I touched on it when I was reading your bio. Could you tell us a little bit more on what you're doing to support the clients you're working with? Absolutely.
So Everywhere Agency, we've been around 10 years, and we do influencer marketing all day, every day, twice on Sunday. So when I say influencer marketing, we're really out there trying to find those influential people who are real people, not necessarily celebrity influencers, but everyday real people who tell the story of brands. So we work with Fortune 500 companies. We work with some of America's most beloved brands. And I guess you could say we're the match.com between brand and influencer. So what we love to do is to find a brand story, a brand product that an influencer can naturally talk about. They might talk about it on their blog. They might talk about it on their Instagram. They might talk about it on Facebook. They might pin things about this brand, but they really further the brand's message in natural, organic ways.
Nice. That makes perfect sense. And kind of the word that comes to my mind is the idea of alignment, because it kind of sounds like that whoever is that influencer also is so in alignment with exactly what that brand stands for, that it ends up being a happy marriage, if we're going to use the match analogy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we always consider ourselves successful if we find an influencer that already loves the brand and would naturally talk about the brand. Now, of course, the world of influencer marketing today is one where we do compensate influencers for telling stories about brands. But we're really trying to find that influencer that truly has a love for the product. So it's totally natural to their channels for them to be talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that really helps influencers connect with their audience, so to speak, is definitely having that authenticity and that alignment and that connection. And when something is off, sometimes you can get called out on it from your followers and people that are around you. So that makes perfect sense. So I wanted to ask you now for what I call your secret sauce. And it could be for you or your organization, but what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
Oh my goodness, there's so many spices in my secret sauce, but there's no real secret. So first off, we are really committed to the human-centric approach to influencer marketing. Yes, it plays out in big technology, and yes, we use a tremendous amount of technology to measure our results, but at the end of the day, you're talking about working with human beings. So we really try to keep that human-centric approach to influencers. So there's somebody on my team right now that's having a direct conversation with an influencer about a campaign. So that's one, staying human-centric. Another spice that goes into my ingredients is relationships are everything. So we've got great relationships with influencers, but we also really focus on our relationships with our clients. You know, we're there to fulfill a need for our clients. So every one of my team members really spends that time to get to know what is the problem they're trying to solve. It's really easy when you start to excel at something to immediately want to slap your solution on something, but maybe that solution isn't exactly right. So really take the time to get to know that client and understand what problem the client's trying to solve. So those are two of the spices that go into my secret sauce. I could probably give you a few more, but we'll just leave it at that.
Exactly. No, I love those. And I love because a lot of that aligns with everything that you guys kind of stand for and what you're even talking to the brands that you're working with. And I usually always say that a lot of times when you peel back the onion of a business, sometimes you forget that it is made up of people, these relationships, these connections, it's all human interaction. So to be able to kind of dial into that from a business standpoint, so to speak, is really something that's phenomenal. And I think are two phenomenal spices as well.
Yeah. And the truth is, at the end of the day, people do business with people.
Yes.
And so, you know, influencer marketing is human-centric, and then our clients are people too. So how can we support them? How can we solve a problem? And again, identifying that problem and making sure that we can prove success. One of the misconceptions about influencer marketing is that it's not measurable. And to that, I say, not true. It is inherently measurable because we've got all the data sets that we can pull from social media, and you can really go all the way down the sales funnel and see how the influencer either impacted a sale, drove awareness, drove attendance, drove hits to a site, whatever it is. But we can really prove that. So to me, it's both the human-centric and then the data-centric that I really love.
Yeah.
Our industry is very much so right brain, left brain. You know, very human-centric, very data-centric. And I think maybe there are other CEOs out there that know that your brain kind of works that way too.
Right.
So for me, it's constantly stimulating both sides of my brain.
Yeah. And it's hard to kind of have one without the other, if you really think about it, because a lot of times when we make decisions, we're making it because of the human connection and relationships. But at the same time, to be able to kind of leverage and understand that data and to be able to track that data allows you to make really educated selections when you're thinking about your resources and where you're spending time and not or spending money and so on and so forth. So I appreciate you guys for being able to create that balance and of course execute on that balance as well. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. And this could be an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm actually going to pull a book I have right here.
Nice.
I keep it by my desk just to remind me.
Hyperfocus.
It's the book called Hyperfocus. So I read this last year. It's written by Chris Bailey. This book has been a game changer for me. So I work in influencer marketing. I work in social media. I'm a CEO. Right now, my email is pinging. My Slack is jumping up and down. And I really, there's something about the business that I'm in that whether or not you're ADD, you'll become ADD just because you work in this business. And I really had to retrain my brain to focus with all the distractions and kind of understand how distractions get in the way of being effective and being productive. So this book really helped me understand that those little things that you jump on, like the email, might prevent you from doing something that's a vital big picture thing. So I keep this by my desk, and sometimes when I feel myself darting all over the place, I just open any place in the book. I read a stat. I'm like, oh, that's right. Mm-hmm. Every time your attention shifts, it takes a full 20 minutes to get back on track. That's why it's taken me 2 weeks to write the 600-word Forbes piece that is due. Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. So that helps me. I also meditate. I meditate every day. I don't start my day with meditation. I end my day with meditation. Mm-hmm. And I start every day really stating an intent for my day. And it's typically not a big intent. It's a small intent. And the intent might be, I really want to focus on touching base with my team today. Right. And if I state that intent, then it just reminds me, wander around the office, say hello to everybody.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think one of the things that we sometimes forget is that a lot of these apps and these social media sites, so on and so forth, are kind of built and developed in order to distract us. So sometimes it's not just us we're at, the liberty of them. It's because from a psychological standpoint, they know exactly how to make sure they get your attention. So it's something that we have to remind ourselves of a lot of times and to work on. So I appreciate you for sharing that with us, and also the book, of course, and then of course, actually a way to do it as far as meditating. So I wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. And this is a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. So if you can hop into a time machine, what would you tell your younger business self?
Oh, hop in a time machine? Can I swear?
Yes, you can. Go for it.
Okay. Chill the fuck out. That's what I would tell my younger self. You don't sweat the small stuff. Eyes on the prize. Those are probably the things I would tell my younger self. I really am in admiration of other CEOs and entrepreneurs, so I'm not sure I necessarily have advice for them as much as I do have advice for people who think they want to become an entrepreneurial CEO. Mm-hmm. And that advice is to really ask yourself if you're willing to be chief cook and bottle washer, because there's this kind of dream of what the entrepreneurial life looks like. But at the end of the day, the buck stops right here. And so you are both a visionary for the company, but you're also chief cook and bottle washer. And the other thing I always advise wannabe entrepreneurs is to do a deep dive into your risk tolerance. Because, and I'm not going to tell you what type of risk tolerance you need to have, but understand where your risk tolerance lay, so to speak. Because as an entrepreneur, there's some things that aren't guaranteed. And one of those things is the paycheck. Yeah. So you really got to understand, what is my risk tolerance for waiting out the paycheck, for example, or what is my risk tolerance for going into debt, or what is my risk tolerance for not knowing where my next meal is going to come from? What is my risk tolerance should the economy collapse? So if you kind of explore those things ahead of time, as things kind of hit you, you can say, oh, I've got a risk tolerance for that. Just like a surfer knows what kind of wave they can ride, an entrepreneur needs to know what kind of risk wave they can ride. And there's some areas I'm incredibly risky and others where I'm quite conservative. So
yeah, I think a lot of times when, like you spoke to, like the entrepreneurial CEO, especially, we see certain things on social media, or it might be on TV or whatever, and we see somebody's, or chapter 24 or close to their end chapter, rather than see the beginning of what it took for them to get there. And I think a lot of times there's that information that's going out that's not necessarily realistic. So you do have to kind of go through some of those things and experience and go after some of that risk in order to be where you want to be. And you have to understand if that's something that you want to do. So I appreciate you for shedding light to that. And now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And you kind of touched on this a little bit, and we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Danica, what does being a CEO mean to you?
For me, being a CEO really means being an inspirational leader. I am only as good as my team. So I really take stock of the fact that I need to set the vision. I need to set the mission. And I have got to be an amazingly good listener to see where my team is in terms of joining me in this journey.
Absolutely. What they say, success is a team sport. So a lot of times you have to have those people in place in order to do that and to reach that success. So I appreciate that definition. And I appreciate your time even more, Danica. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And then, of course, how best they can get a hold of you and find out about all the awesome things you guys are doing.
Anything else you need to know? Yes, this is red wallpaper, and I love it.
I didn't know if it was a green screen.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. And people that want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I'm everywhere. So everywhereagency.com, and on Twitter, you can find me at Danica Combo. I have a difficult name to spell, but it's DANICAKOMBOL. And yes, I'm still on Twitter, despite the fact that we've got some kind of crazy shenanigans happening right now with the White House and Twitter rants, but I'm still there.
Yes. I'm still there too. I enjoy Twitter as much as I guess other people do where the shenanigans are happening. So Danica, I appreciate you, and anybody that wants to make sure they spell your name correctly, you can also check in the show notes. We'll have a link as well, but appreciate you. Appreciate all the awesome things you're doing, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you for listening to the I Am CEO podcast powered by Blue 16 Media. Tune in next time and visit us at IAM416.co. I Am CEO is not just a phrase, it's a community. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating. Grab CEO gear at www.ceogear.co. This has been the I Am CEO podcast with Gresham Harkless. Thank you for listening.